Hello, this is Greg Smalley on Pod 366, a Weird Movies podcast. Joined today, as I often am, by Giles Edwards,
Hello, everybody.
and we are going to talk about five items today, one of which is a very long and meaty item.
Oh,
And uh, I think we should probably start with that one. And so there's not much to describe, Giles, but I suppose you could describe what you do see on the screen.
sure. We've got a
I'll just
kind
read
of
the text.
soft peach orange overall, and I guess a decorative square with frame things with little leaves interspersed between them, done up in I guess a wallpaper style would be the closest thing I could think of for this particular notice, which outside its geometry and I don't know, golden palms perhaps and long ovals, there's just the text explaining just what's going on here.
And that is
Yeah.
announcement of the official selection, Thursday, April 11th. And then at the bottom, 77 Festival, but it doesn't really say what it is. Maybe we zoom in on this.
Oh my word, those were not, well, those were sort of square forms, but they were squares formed by words. The words Festival de Cannes.
Festival de Cannes, which is, of course, in English, the Cannes Film Festival. And normally, the Cannes Film Festival does not have a lot of weird films in it. There's usually, you can find one, maybe. Famously, they sort of disliked David Cronenberg's Crash and did not feature a lot of weird films since then. Up
Um,
until the 2000s, things started to change when a very weird film actually won in probably, was it 2020 when Titan won? 2020,
yeah, yeah,
2021,
yeah, definitely.
something like that.
Mhm.
And now all of a sudden, we have a ton of weird films from weird directors debuting at Cannes this year.
All right.
So, Giles, I don't think I told you which movies I selected to talk about briefly.
Hmm.
Um, but let's see what you noticed playing, and we'll see how many of them overlap. Maybe you
Well,
found something I didn't. Probably not.
well, I sifted through this law. I don't know what they call this. I guess it's the main announcement that was posted about a week ago today as we're recording. We have a Francis Ford Coppola piece that we've mentioned a few times now. Megalopolis will be showing up there. Lanthimos is Who's He Do After Poor Things, which of course we know is the title is Kinds of Kindness. Will be showing up there. I see words like David Cronenberg, so he's back. Maybe to annoy them again and send them into another 20-year stretch of being really conservative, snooty Frenchies. Um, let's see. Yeah, the other thing that I guess really caught my mind was a description, canine courtroom drama, which sounds, yeah, at least promising, is going to be showing up there.
Well,
And
go ahead.
yeah. Oh, well, I was just to say the others are probably more that. Oh, yeah, and the Surfer also caught my eye, especially reading that Nicolas Cage plays the quote titular character. So a middle-aged Nicolas Cage as a surfer is a concept that, well, it will be difficult to do that incorrectly, even if it's difficult to do it right.
So, you did find one that I didn't notice. What is this about a canine courtroom drama? What can you
Um,
tell us, Giles?
the That's elsewhere in the lineup. Cannes will feature actors turned directors Letitia Dosh and Naomi Merlon. Portrait of a Lady on Fire stars Merlon. Star Merlon brings her sophomore feature, The Balconettes, a feminist comedy set in Marseille, covering blah, to the midnight section. Dosh, a Cannes discovery who starred in Jeune Femme, directed the canine courtroom drama Who Let the Dog Bite, which will screen in Un Certain Regard alongside Louise Courvoisier's Vin Dieu.
Ah, okay. I missed that one. So that's in Un Certain Regard. I'm not sure. Yeah, I didn't recognize any of the films in Un Certain Regard. So good catch on that one, Giles. I have several that you didn't mention, some of which you know, some of which you would recognize the director, but didn't catch. But let's talk about the ones that are we did notice in common real quick. Megalopolis, of course, we have discussed probably twice before, maybe three times.
At least twice, yeah.
At least twice. And we, as recently as last week, we discussed the fact that Francis Ford Coppola was having distribution problems, at least to the extent that he couldn't get any major studios to distribute it for him. Not that other people wouldn't be interested. He just has a like $100 million campaign in mind.
He had a big vision for what he wanted, so yes, he will probably have to adjust his ambitions closer to what reality can provide.
Some other people have pointed out that Apocalypse Now had a sort of similar history to where it cost a lot of money to make, and people were not excited about it. And then it debuted at Cannes and got a lot of uh, people excited about it and was able to be distributed on a wider level. So I guess he's hoping to bookend his career and strike twice with that. It's a dystopian satire from what we can tell. Very, although people have, it's been premiered for a select group of people. Most film critics haven't even seen it. It was, I think, special, it was previewed for special invitees of Coppola's, and they have sort of reported anonymously on it that it is seems like it might be kind of batshit. Somebody said that all the performances are dialed up to 11, which sounds really good.
Well, yeah, especially, I mean, this, I'm just taking a look at the cast list now. I mean, Giancarlo Esposito, of course, Aubrey Plaza, as we knew, Shia LaBeouf, Dustin Hoffman, John Voight, Lawrence Fishburne, Adam Driver. I mean, come on, these are performances I want to see dialed up to 11.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So that will premiere there. That's probably, whether people like it or dislike it, it's probably going to be the buzz title of the festival, I think. Moving on, Lanthimos, of course, Kinds of Kindness. We've already shared the first trailer from that, the first teaser trailer from it. As we know, it is three little movies reuniting Lanthimos with his longtime screenwriter who penned his weirdest films. So that's promising. The Cronenberg movie is called The Shrouds, and we did talk about that about a year ago when it was first announced. You might not have been on the podcast that time.
Yeah, I think I would have remembered. So, yeah.
It's got Vincent Cassel. It's about a service, mortuary service he provides that allows people to have cameras trained on the bodies of their loved ones so they can see them as they decompose, which, is what you really want to remember your grandma the way you want to remember her, right? You want to
I guess there are
the
various
flesh
ways to
rot off,
do
her turn into bones and dust. That's precisely what everybody
Mm.
wants.
Mhm.
So there's that. And then, oh, the surfer. You mentioned the surfer. Uh, Interesting thing about the surfer, we don't know it is going to be Nicolas Cage starring. However, we don't know that he will be the titular surfer. So,
Okay, because I think I was working from the phrasing here, but I may have. Yeah, it said yeah about I don't know fifth way down. Official selection with Midnight Movie The Surfer featuring Nicolas Cage in the title role. So that's
oh,
according to
so
them.
I'm wrong. You're correct.
Well,
Yeah, I
presuming they are.
guess he will
Oh,
be.
Lorcan Finnegan. Yeah, I had a great interview with him about Vivarium that my recording device failed to pick up. But yeah, him working with Cage will be very cool.
Well, see, yes, that's the other thing you didn't point out. You just caught it. The director is Lorcan Finnegan, who did Vivarium, a very strange movie with who is the star? It's Jesse Eisenberg, right?
Yeah.
Uh was the female star anybody?
Yeah.
I think she
Let me
was,
let me let me
I
quickly
remember,
punch that up here. Oh yeah, Imogen Poots.
Imogen Poots.
Yep. So
Great
two
name.
somebodies together.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a big step up for Lorcan to be at Cannes. I mean, somebody you've interviewed too.
It's
You've now
Saturday.
interviewed somebody who's had a movie at Cannes. It will be in the midnight section, which is kind of a
Well, I
little,
mean that's the coolest section, Greg. Let's be serious here.
it's kind of a ghetto, but it's where we like our stuff. Although most of these are not playing. It's the
No.
only midnight section film that we are interested in. For other movies, though, that you didn't notice, I don't know if maybe it wasn't in the article you read, but Guy Maddin's Rumors we talked about will be debuting there. So we talked about that a couple of episodes ago. It's with the
Oh yes.
G7 conference. It's
Yeah.
strange subject, strangely contemporary subject matter for Guy Maddin, the G7 conference one, and that had who was it? It had a couple of Alicia Vikander and
Kate
another
Blanchett
Kate Blanchett. Yeah,
and
another.
anyone remotely familiar with I believe oh gosh, I know I've seen this guy. It's Takahiro Hira, who has been in a lot of Japanese cinema, both genre and otherwise.
So the biggest actors I think Guy Maddin has ever worked with. So that's there. Also, that's in competition. Then something just popped up on my radar, one called C'est pas moi from Leos Carax. Out of nowhere, it's supposedly, all I can tell from researching it is a under 1 hour, which Giles would like, and it's a autobiographical essay movie, documentary style, experimental from the director of Holy Motors, I think going back over his own career, Holy Motors and one Giles, I think, saw Annette. Didn't you see
Yes.
Annette? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I wrote a review for it.
Right. So there's that one also. And then the opening film of the festival, not in competition, is another one from Quentin Dupieux. Again, it's called The Second Act, or in French, Le Deuxième Acte. And we don't have, again, much information on it. It's got Léa Seydoux as a woman introducing her reluctant boyfriend to her father, set in a restaurant in the middle of nowhere. And it's going to open the festival, which is pretty good for Dupieux. I think that Rubber might have played at Cannes. I'm not sure,
Hmm.
but it's possible this is his first time there. And they're finally, after a couple of decades of making movies, they're finally recognizing him in some capacity. At any rate, it's a nice honor for Quentin. and yet another movie. We're always like, it's like every other episode we're announcing, oh, there's a new Quentin Dupieux movie.
Yeah, I'm looking at this. His rate of production looks to be certainly starting once he hit rubber. After that, it's seems to have been averaging at least one a year, with doubles in one year making up for the occasional gap elsewhere.
I think he's got at least two a year lately.
He seems to be getting faster.
He's
Yes.
starting to do it faster. So we talked about one a couple of weeks ago, a new one that he has out, which was the name escapes me. It's
Yannick.
Yannick, yes, was a person's name, and we're eagerly awaiting his Salvador Dali biography
With
called
6
Dali with 6 A's. So yeah. All right, and that is what I count 7 films of interest plus the Canine Courtroom Drama that I didn't notice makes 8 films of interest at Cannes, which shatters their previous record, which had to be like 2 films of interest.
Yeah, I don't remember more than 2. All right. Yeah.
So that is our most anticipated Cannes Film Festival of all time, coming up very soon. This says April 11th, but that's the date it was announced. The actual festival starts on the 15th of May. Because I actually went off this and was looking at Variety and wondering why they hadn't reported on any damn reviews of any damn films. They should have been halfway through by now. And of course, it's because it doesn't actually start till May, despite that April 11th there. So that's that. Let's move on to our other 4 items, some of which are pretty quick ones.
Yeah.
Giles, do you know what this is? Or if you don't, at least maybe.
I do know what this is. This is a lineup of people in front of horizontally planked kind of mid-century modern looking back wall there. There's a dartboard, there's a pinball machine, and these people are looking, shall we say, muted in clothing tone, while at the same time appearing a little flamboyant. Starting from the far left, there's a woman in one of those sort of squash hat things and a cardigan over a greenish top. She's looking kind of dismayed in our direction. Immediately to her left, there is a striking, full-figured individual with red hair, lipstick, and she's gazing at us in a sort of forthright, what are you going to do about it kind of look. Center and holding some sort of object with a sphere is a well-mustachioed gentleman with a fine comb of hair, salmon-colored shirt, one of those great, I'm going to call it 70s hues striped ties, and a tan blazer. He's looking not at us, but kind of off over our shoulder with a, dear God, what am I doing here kind of look. And in his left arm is a woman in a sort of, looks like it could be a formal suit or, tight skirt, sweater kind of thing. And she seems to be peering at us with a why am I here look. And then standing kind of more separate from the others than the first 4, young fellow staring dead in our eyeballs, asking us, what the heck are you going to do about this, while wearing a dark gray hoodie and sort of khaki cargo slacks.
Yeah, and over his shoulder, a pinball machine.
Is the pinball machine. So yes, dartboard, pinball, and those 5 people in between.
Which says it's something like Dad Kings, or I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what it reads, but
well, I guess we'll have
Kings.
to watch it and hopefully
we'll have to watch it to find out.
Yeah.
Doodad Kings is my guess. So this is called Hanky Panky, and the title comes from, let's just read the log line and you'll know why it caught our interest. The log line: a man and a talking napkin saved the world from an evil top hat and also learned to love.
And if I may add, the genre advertised, puppets and blood.
Sure. And the runtime. There's a note on the runtime too.
86 minutes. 4 of which is a fight scene between a napkin and a hat.
Yeah, so we have we'll have the trailer up on the website. The trailer perhaps doesn't capture the insanity of the description. It is clearly a very low budget production, right? Although I will say that some of the acting seemed better than you would expect from, or you might expect from this level of production. Seth Green is sort of a relatively major talent involved, and he does the voice of either the napkin or the hat. I'm not sure which. But I will say,
oh, he's the hat, so he's, I
hat.
guess, the bad guy.
Yeah, you want to be the villain in this.
Oh,
I will say that's a lot of the quotes that they have put up on their website. The pull quotes are very promising. This one, it may be a little too strange and outlandish for some, but those who are willing to embrace its unashamed weirdness and brazen nonconformity are in a great time, says David Gelmini of Dread Central. And let's see, there's some others that say things like a new level of insanity, completely bonkers. So,
yeah, I certainly can say from experience looking at their reviews, if Dread Central says something's weird, it may not be weird enough for us, but it's usually tilting in the right direction.
good point. Good point. So, very, very, it's a comedy, so it's self-aware horror. But I'd say it's very promising based on the little we actually know about it. So that is Hanky Panky, which will be going straight to VOD, and they, I think, deliberately put it out on 420 weekend.
Ah, oh yes, yes, those that certain type of celebrant.
For Pete Turbovich. Speaking of things that are now available on VOD,
Hey!
this one is they're making a big deal about it on VOD on their social media because, and actually there was a plea on Twitter, please don't pirate this movie, please. They're trying to make money off this. They have to get that $100 budget back.
Yeah, that's yeah, from the many interviews we've done and others I've read and heard, I bet I'd be interested to hear the ratio of the cost of production versus distribution.
But we haven't said what it is yet. So Giles,
No.
describe the still, and then we'll.
Sure thing. We're looking at a black and white photo, which mimics a somewhat famous ad campaign for those of a certain generation. On the left-hand side is an old cathode ray television with rabbit ears spronging out at 45 degrees from the surface in the traditional maximum rabbit ear position. There's a white wall, partially illuminated, up against which is a lamp with its shade askew, as if the television were blasting it in some capacity. And slouched in a lounge chair, staring at the static-filled screen, is someone with a necktie blowing back, and this someone is very beaver mascot costume looking.
With his tie streaming behind him.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it is, of course, hundreds of beavers, which we have now discussed hundreds of times. And we'll discuss, well, we're nearing at least hundreds of discussions of hundreds of beavers because we still have the Blu-ray release.
Yeah, there's a Blu-ray release, Criterion, of course, then the 8K, then the 8K Steelbook. We'll be covering hundreds of beavers for a good while yet, I have no doubt.
Hundreds of beavers virtual reality AI experience.
Oh gosh.
Coming in 2025. So yes, hundreds of beavers. Now this is their big chance, probably, this is where the majority of their audience is going to see this, right? Not in theaters, not in the Blu-ray, but on video on demand is where this is the meat of the hundreds of beavers fever coming up.
Yeah.
So good luck to them.
Yeah.
Something else, this has been on VOD, but now out on Blu-ray. Giles will attempt to adjust the cover, perhaps. I don't do
Hmm.
it all, but give him a sense of what we're looking
Oh
at.
yeah, I'll mention some of the motifs. First of all, the background is a very possibly the most eye-catching yellow that you can print. So this catches your eye. And there's a lot of red going with the yellow, which works very nicely to further catch the eye. The title of this film, which I won't give away yet, forms a cross down the middle of the a vertical cross down the middle of the image here. And behind this, ostensibly, is a certainly wannabe groovy looking guy with scraggly long hair, shades, and a 10-cent version of $1 million smile. And he's got a kind of disco metal swagger with heeled shoes. And it looks like he's wielding as a weapon a heart on a chain, and emerging from his head are some drawn icon style peacock feathers. So this is a very showy individual. And for whatever reason, clustered around each of his legs, depending on one side, are some Orthodox monks amidst a bunch of psychedelic flowers. There's a young woman in, I'll say, traditional Far Eastern European dress with drawn wings coming out of her. On the other leg, there's a crummy but shiny little red car rested askew just above his knee, and dominating, I guess, his right calf down as he's striding forward. Looks like a wise old, and I'm going to guess, martial arts master, considering the ambiguous staff item in his hands, all, of course, with a number of flowers around him.
Yeah. And butterflies. And
And butterflies. Oh, yeah, this is,
he also has a peacock
oh,
icon.
yep, yes, it's true. He has a slightly different but more authoritative peacock centerpiece, at least,
Yeah.
which is
And
appropriate for this character's role in the film, which, of course, I've described the invisible fight.
right. And as the heading quote says, an explosive mix of kung fu, heavy metal, and Orthodox Christianity. So this is on Blu-ray, and I didn't notice any sort of special features or anything on it. It is a movie that Giles has reviewed and recommended for the website.
Mhm.
Anything else you want to tell people about this, Giles?
Well, the quote along the top really summarizes it nicely. It's a very fun movie that was very eager to please, but never annoyingly so. And it was tonally, in many ways, quite different from the other film from this director, Rainer Sarnet, that Greg and I at least have seen. The much more somber film November, which he made about 4 or so years ago now, which had its own share of the fantastic in a very different way.
Yeah, very grim black and white film. Also, sort of interesting that both films, however, share an interest in Christianity because November is set at the transitional period between paganism and Christianity is very important in that story. And here, although I haven't seen it, apparently Christianity is again very important to the story.
It's set in 1970, which goes a long way to uh, justifying and explaining the heavy metal element. Black Sabbath's The Wizard features very prominently. And yes, this is the main character is Russian, and it's on the very western edge of Russia, right near China, which allows for the kung fu thing. The opening 5-10 minutes of this film are a must-see for anyone interested in an Estonian's take on 1960s martial arts fantasy mayhem. It just it's that alone is worth the price of admission. And so, yes, young man, grown up in Soviet culture. It's set in 1973. And but still, old religions don't die quickly. So he's got a lot of that mysticism and a lot of the neighboring countries' mysticism, and of course a lot of Black Sabbath's mysticism. And it's just sort of careens forward from there at a fun pace.
The design of this cover, however, suggests a lot of kind of hippie stuff. Is that actually in the movie, or is it just
Yes
cover?
and no. I was lucky enough to take a number of Soviet culture classes in my college years, and so not only do you have a temporal divide between when things are cool in certain parts of the world, especially far Western Russia in the early 70s. You also have the local interpretation of what their background is, coupled with what they can actually get away with and what they can get their hands on. So, yeah, there was a lot of disco bell bottom heavy metal stuff that is like anything that was kind of against the system could often be just cobbled together to make the people like the badass that we see here storming across this DVD cover.
Okay, so it's a Soviet cultural thing where they didn't distinguish the different genres of rock and roll, but just anything that was Western was considered.
Anything Western, yeah, and especially I mostly studied Petersburg and Moscow, which are closer to the Western, and so yeah, whatever the further filtration as it got further from that point, the more eccentric it's going to land. So it all looked odd, but right.
And of course, it's Estonian.
Yeah,
So it's in the
and it,
very far west. The director is from the very far west of the former Soviet Union, and probably
no, he's
not.
from the Far East.
Hmm?
He's from the Far East of the Soviet Union.
No,
No, oh God, I mixed that up again. Yeah, Far West. Sorry, this takes place in the Far East. Yeah, he's from the Far West. This is Far East. So yeah, Estonian filter as well.
and I'm thinking although it's set in the former Soviet Union, I don't know how old he is, but the director's probably not old enough to really remember the Soviet Union himself. So it's probably further nostalgic, maybe in that sense, or I don't.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay. It looks like quick look up. Yeah, born in 1969. So yeah, born 4 years before this movie set. He's not having memories of the Far East of the Soviet Empire. So yeah,
Okay,
but
Invisible Fight. You do recommend it though.
oh yes, whole lot of fun.
Next one, and the last one we'll discuss today. Okay, Giles, describe the still.
All right, we're looking at black and white, though, a whole lot of grayscale going on here. Somewhat somber, certainly serious looking gentleman in a semi crushed black fedora, also wearing a black top coat and a scarf. Clean shaven, he's looking up somberly at the eyeball of a large being which dominates the frame, taking up, I'd guess, about 80% of it, if I had to call out a number, of an aquatic looking being that, well, it's not looking back at him if it can presumably look at all, considering what I think it is.
Oh yeah, it's a dead stuffed whale is what he's looking at. And the movie, of course, if you hear dead stuffed whale and you've read through our site a lot, then you would know that that must be the Werckmeister Harmonies, or probably the Werckmeister Harmonies, and indeed that's what it is. So this movie from Bela Tarr, 2000 to 2001, had long been not really available in a decent presentation at least. And in my original review of it, I wrote that, boy, this seems like something that the Criterion Collection should really get their hands on. It's Bela Tarr, art house, slow core, very Tarkovsky-like, very serious, and an excellent movie. And guess what? Yeah, they did. Took them almost 20 years. It took them more than 20 years actually to get their hands on it, but they finally did. It was restored in 2022 by the Hungarian National Film Institute, and now it is out on Criterion Blu-ray. And I will say it's on DVD. It's on for people who still purchase DVDs, Blu-ray. It's on a 4K UHD. They're all purchased separately, and it is on the Criterion channel, and it is on VOD for purchase. So you no longer have any excuse not to see the Werckmeister Harmonies, which is, as I said, for slow cinema, this is as good as it gets other than Tarkovsky. Slow cinema is sort of very much a acquired taste, and some people can never acquire it. And when it's a bad or, dull movie, it can really be a trial. This one really is probably worth your time. One of the top outside of Tarkovsky, it would be my top recommendation in the genre. Giles, I know you saw another Bela Tarr movie, Damnation,
I
that
did.
you did not like, and I concur with you about Damnation. It's a very, very dull movie. But however, I do encourage you to check out the Werckmeister Harmonies, which is a much better movie, much more intellectually stimulating when nothing is happening on the screen. And there are some very frightening scenes. There's a sort of carnival demagogue in it, and a lot of talk about order in the universe and music. And so it's very intellectually stimulating. And there are some really magnificent camera shots of just beautifully staged things with the camera moving and panning back and craning, all in an unbroken shot, with a scene of a bunch of people marching like soldiers that dissolves into a chaotic brawl. And it's a very good film. And do not be afraid by how slow paced it is. I think it's less than 20 takes. I forget precisely how many takes in the movie, but it's very small number of long takes in this film.
Okay, because I'm kind of curious because the one saving grace, at least as far as I was concerned for Damnation, was there was some occasional, very subtle, interesting camera work that went on. And I'm just trying to see if, since you have so eloquently spoken about this, the Werckmeister's camera work, I'm just trying to see if I can quickly find if it's the same guy. But that's something I can.
Yeah, I'm not sure who the cinematographer is. I should point out that there is one substantial extra on the film, which is Bela Tarr's
Oh, yep, it's
first
the same
film.
cinematographer.
I yeah, his first film is a bonus on this release called Family Nest. Don't know anything about it. But that's a bonus. And yeah, I'm not surprised that it's the same cinematographer. Okay, we have less than a minute, and I believe we have covered everything adequately. Any final words, Giles?
No, no, no. Just wish everyone a good week and like and subscribe.
Or just watch all the way through. I will say next week we will have a guest, I believe. Is that the right week? Yes. Eric Kirsten from Academic will be our guest, and we'll talk about some Jean Rollin films. We always bring him on when there's a Jean Rollin release to talk about stuff.
Excellent.
So that will be next week. Also, Lars von Trier's The Kingdom next week. All right. Talk to you later. See you next week. Bye-bye, everybody.
Cheers.